Hey, and welcome to the Agency Operators Podcast. Today I'm joined by Stephanie Khalikyar of Uncapped. How are you doing, Stephanie?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm doing well. Excited for this conversation. Capital is the lifeblood of every business. And fun fact, I've actually used Uncapped. I think I mentioned that to you. Uncapped is a great service. I've used them and a couple others. They've really helped me to grow my e-commerce brand in the past and get it to the exit. So highly, honestly, I don't know how people don't use some kind of funding solution unless they bootstrap everything themselves. But once you get to a certain point, you kind of have to, right?
You'd think so. I mean, there's a few remaining magical unicorns that can have really high margins and make it all the way by themselves. But if you want to take up massive market, capital is the best way to do that. You just have to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I learned the hard way too about
Yeah.
being careful to, yeah, understanding how the terms work, and every different funding partner has their own perspective of how they look at percentages and term lengths and whatnot. But before we dive into the meat and potatoes of the conversation, I just wanted to ask you, Stephanie, to share a little bit about your history, inform the audience about, a little about yourself and what you've learned through the years working as a strategic director of partnerships and growth in different businesses and different companies.
Yeah, so the journey started out like a lot of us in the ecom space. I was a seller, ran multiple businesses, mainly on Amazon and Shopify, and then some, dribbling in Etsy, as we all did, just to see if it works, right?
Hmm.
I have been a victim of capital, and I've been a fan all at the same time. So the journey really began in product development and then entrepreneurship into e-commerce businesses. I sold a few, I bankrupted one because of bad capital. So I'm quite passionate about what happens there. And then I started as a partnerships manager, business development, and then most importantly, I really focused in on M&A in e-commerce when the aggregator bubble was at its peak. So I've looked at a lot of P&Ls and a lot of unhealthy businesses doing, revenue figures that everybody wants to achieve, but having, some capital constraints that have really made them almost zero out. So it's a big passion for me. I've watched a lot of businesses turn around for the better by restructuring. And I'm excited to talk about it because it is my biggest focus these days.
Awesome. So let's start with the bad experience. What happened there? What made it bad credit versus good credit, and what were some of the, I guess, repercussions that you had to deal with?
Yeah, so I'm sure most people have heard this saying at one point or another, but the best time to get money is when you don't need it, right? And so, in most circumstances before today, finances have never been a huge part of the e-commerce community conversations. It's always like this leftover thought about your P&L and having accrual accounting and really understanding your numbers on a skew basis. And at the time that I was running this business, I was just like everybody else. And I was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. I didn't truly know my contribution margin. I didn't even know what that meant yet. And I wasn't really aware of my actual cash conversion cycles and the health of my business. So I was growing and I was just taking money and I wasn't reading the fine print, and it bit me. It bit me really hard.
Yeah, yeah, I can totally see how that can happen. I fell into the same similar type of trap. And it was, to be honest, it was one of the things that actually pushed me to sell, which I think in the end was a positive thing. But it was this very funny circumstance where you're growing too fast and you can't keep up because the amount that you have to borrow and this, like you said, the timing cycle of cash turnaround. It's like
Yeah.
all of those have to line up together. So working with Uncapped, it was pretty clear. Like that was one thing I really liked, is that you guys really did a diligence in making it crystal clear what the actual offer is, comparing it to how the results look inside the business. So very data driven, and
Mhm.
then coming to terms with what makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll give myself a little bit of grace on this one. COVID kind of pushed that one over the edge. So, when you take capital from whether it's a traditional bank or you got the PPP loan or whatever the case is, like if you have a problem in your business and you're not paying attention, capital just pours gasoline on that problem. You just now have a larger problem. It doesn't actually fix anything. And so what I do like about Uncapped, to kind of support what you just said, is that it's very non-predatory, smart capital. And I'm not saying that because, I work with them. I'm saying it because like I was rejected by them twice. And I love that because they were the only ones who did. And there's a smart reason for that. It's like, well, we don't want to give you capital because you're not in a place to repay it properly based on this forecast that we created. So when you get funded by Uncapped, it's because they have a business's best interests at heart and you're going to grow using them. So it's almost like a validation checkbox. Like getting funded by them means, okay, my business is growing in the right direction. This capital is going to work really comfortably in my business. And that's why a lot of people end up taking 3 to 4 loans from us in the lifetime that they work with us, which says a lot.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's also protection for Uncapped or any lender to do that type of thing where they want to ensure that they can get paid. They want to, and internally, Uncapped is working with other banks, right, to receive that capital. Like, so they're essentially a middleman and providing a software as a service per se. Is that right?
We have a capital partner, but we don't work with banks directly. Okay. So yeah, we have backing where we use those facilities, but we kind of run the show in terms of like the who and the how and the why.
And they have criteria for which they need to meet those criteria in order to get approval. So is there 2 layers of underwriting, one from the capital partner and then one from you guys as like a first layer?
Sort of. I mean, there's always like, those conversations that have to take place and everybody has to agree on a risk appetite. So there is a degree of that, but not necessarily as it pertains to like underwriting the businesses. It's more of just like the guy on top underwrites the strategy that we present, and then we are free to kind of use capital as we see fit.
Okay. And what are some of the criteria that you guys are really looking at?
So we want to make sure that your return on ad spend is in a healthy place if you choose that you want to use it for marketing purposes, so that we know that when you use that capital on something that's functioning, that it's going to like quadruple your results and not put you in the hole. We care about your inventory turn and that you're growing at a steady, pace. We also care that you've been in business, which is pretty standard across funding, that you've been in business for at least 6 months. I don't think anybody needs capital before they've hit at least 1 year. Truly. I mean, you should have enough profit margin in your products to be able to at least get you to the 12-month mark. That's just my personal take. And then we work with companies that are based in the US and the UK, Canada, and Poland are our focal points for capital. So you have to have an LLC. It can't be an S corp. And not in terms of like tax filings, but just like partnership entities. But that's really it. We just ask that you like have been selling for a little bit, are doing at least 10K, are registered in a place that we can support, and that you're growing or stable in the efforts that you're putting into your business.
Why Poland?
I have no idea.
I think it could
our CEO's there, right?
Okay.
But I don't think that's why. It's not like I'm gonna put capital where I live. But like, we did all of Europe for a while, well before I was part of the company, and I think we held on to the places that were showing movement and traction that we wanted to see, and then we kind of let go of the ones that like I guess weren't great focal points for us.
I speak a little bit of Polish myself, so I've spent some time there. And Allegro is a market that I've seen emerge there quite a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking it could be that because maybe sellers are looking to get funded. And so you guys don't do just Amazon, right? You can kind of provide funding for
all Ecom.
All Ecom, Shopify.
Yeah. But so anything goes.
Most of your customers do fund for Amazon, I imagine, because it's easier to understand the marketing. Everything's in one place versus like a Shopify store. You have to hook into all of their ad platforms. And
yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, the underwriting for Amazon is like immediate. It's so quick. But we do support all Ecom platforms when it comes to funding. So it doesn't matter where you are, as long as you're digital. We kind of go deep on our products and our offerings so that we can adjust with the ecom market instead of going into like SaaS and brick and mortar and things like that. We keep it really focused on this specific group so we can evolve with everyone.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And you have a wide network of partners as well. You do recommendations for partners. Like how much involved in the growth process are you guys? Or are you just providing capital, or are you kind of taking steps outside of that too?
No, I mean, we work really hard to make sure that every relationship that we have is full circle. Like segmenting any kind of rejection reason. If you come in to the process and you're not a fit, we like to work with our partners to make sure that whatever it is that you need is met, whether that's with us or with someone else that we know. So we want people to really feel like we can be your growth partner, whether you use our capital or not. And that also goes for our partnerships. Like anybody who works with Uncapped is, featured across all things, very open to doing any kind of co-sponsorship or events. And then we put, those who embed our API into their platforms are then also embedded into our customer portal as well, so that they get promoted as much as possible.
I recently actually had somebody that was putting together sort of like a hub for different white label solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they had was like a funding solution. And when they pulled it up, it was on ramp. I'm like, oh, I talked to Stephanie about this API. I know what you guys are doing. So that's actually very smart, because like anything that has to do with ecom, like you said, it's funny how funding isn't like a primary topic, although it's probably the main topic once you're running the business.
Yeah.
It's just not there really like as an initial stage. Like really it's just about marketing and everything. So makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So okay, just kind of generally, if somebody was thinking about taking capital, I know you went through some of the check marks, but is there anything that they should just like really look out for? Because you mentioned at the beginning that saying, look for funding when you don't need it, but a lot of people do need it. And so you're taking on some risk. Like, yeah, what's the good middle point where it's like you need it, but it's still a good idea to go look for it?
So I'll take it back a couple steps further than that. I think the most important thing that any business owner can do that's in ecom is knowing their numbers, like truly knowing their numbers. So having a smart accounting platform, or working, hand in hand with a CPA, however it works for you, but really understanding the unit economics of all of your SKUs is step one before doing anything else. Because if your unit economics are broken, then anytime that you do think you need capital, it's going to, like I said, amplify that problem. So you need to understand what your margins are, where you can improve ahead of time so that you get better capital when you do go after it. And then being really, really clear on what you need to use it for. So like, let's say you're killing it on Amazon and Shopify and you're like, I'm jumping on that TikTok train, right? Knowing your unit economics, knowing your numbers is step one. And then once you are clear that you are profitable and you are going in the right direction, being very clear on exactly how you would deploy capital if you had it is step two. So having a strategic plan, but supported by actual data, is like the best thing that you could do for your business. And if you maybe are like, well, we don't want to launch there today, but we want to launch there in 6 months, and you're on an upward trajectory, go apply for that capital now, understand all of your numbers, create a plan, and then you'll have this money that is healthy and is there for you to start implementing in that strategic plan. If you wait until you hit a point where you're like, I'm running out of inventory, and I wish I could scale these ads, but I'm running out of budget and all these things, and you're hindering your own growth, you're going to go after that capital just to keep kind of the lights on. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing is you're pouring gas on a problem. So you need to start understanding your numbers before you think you need capital, so that you can do it in a very smart way. So that's like my advice to anybody, is just like really understand your contribution margin 1, 2, and 3. Know what your cost of goods are. Know your fee stack. Know how much you're blowing on ads. You probably have wasted ad spend. We all do, right? What are you left with? How much capital can you actually afford? And then what are you going to do with it if you got it? So that's all of it.
In some cases, you need capital in order to get over a hump, even though it's like a calculated decline. you know that you're going to borrow that money and it's going to be a bit of a loss, but you're hoping that it's going to help you to get over the hump, and in the future you'll make profits, or it'll help you to grow revenues, which you can then eventually scale into profits later that will help you to make an exit. So personally, I've experienced that where I've had to do those sort of things in moments when, all right, I'm experiencing a lot of crunch or growth or something happened, like
Mhm.
in the manufacturing supply chain, there was an issue that required me to now I have to order all this extra inventory, which yes, it will help me to reduce the cost of goods, but I have to borrow money in order to do that, and that money is expensive, and so it offsets that savings on the cost of goods, right? And then there's all this like shipping time speed up, so you might have to fly things over instead of put them on the water. And so you're kind of in a messy situation and you need the capital. That's happened to me.
Mhm.
And it was like, okay, the numbers don't make sense, but it's important for like the big picture of what I'm building.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But you also have to keep in mind that, like, let's say you have those, everyone has peaks and valleys, right? Everybody got hit with tariffs, and it's like, now I have $100,000 bill that I have to pay, which I didn't see coming. And like all these other things happen all the
yeah,
time. But if you know your numbers ahead of time, then you'll kind of know how much capital you can absorb before you take it. Because when you take it, whether everything works out or not, you can't take capital and then hope. You have to
yeah,
take capital and know, right? And if you take capital, you have to know that if everything stays the same right now, I'll be able to pay it back. Otherwise, your business starts to go upside down. So, like, it's still important to kind of have that plan ahead of time and know that going into it. Because say you had $100,000 bill that you didn't see coming, but your business can only support taking a $50,000 loan and pay it back if nothing else changes, then you need to find a workaround. You need to renegotiate. You need to come up with a plan. Like, you know what I mean? You have to do
mhm,
something else so that you don't bankrupt your business, hoping that things work out later. So it's just, to me, like, I would just strictly go off numbers and put my emotions in a box and bury them as far as I could, because I ran a whole business off of emotions and future. And, entrepreneurs, we persevere to a fault. And that's what I did. I pushed through. I was excited. I could do it, whatever, and you get yourself into this mindset where, like, everything will be okay. And you don't really take a look at, like, the economics of it all.
I think it's important just kind of generally being very critical as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
because if you're your own boss, no one's going to tell you that's not a good idea, right?
Yeah.
But you sometimes you do need someone to tell you, and that the only person is you.
Yeah.
And
I mean, and you can ask other people, but if they're not in the same world as you, you're not
yeah,
really going to take their advice very well.
no, and it's tricky because that same motivation that tells you no is the same motivation that tells you yes in the same way.
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, if I don't try, how am I going to know? But
Yeah.
the more I do this, meaning open businesses, run businesses, grow businesses, because as an agency owner, I'm exposed to multiple different brands, and we have a portfolio, and so but it's all Amazon, and anyway, I've worked in different industries as well, knowing the cutoff point, like at what point am I just going to pull the plug? Like I've
Yeah.
invested all this money and time, I believe in it, but like enough's enough. This is starting to drain everything else. Like when's that cutoff point? And it's important to know what that cutoff is. And I agree. The thing that really changed the way I look at business is having really great bookkeeping, accounting, the really boring stuff that
So
nobody
unsettled.
wants to talk about, like looking at spreadsheets for like an hour and talking about stuff that's like emotionally tied up, like all your business is going this way, like we have to do this to like you have to fire someone you like or whatever, these are all very difficult conversations and you're the one who's responsible. So having really good numbers and getting ahead of things, planning compounds. So then you're in a position of strength when you borrow money or make other types of business decisions.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. But that's, again, why I like being at Uncapped, because they kind of do it for you. Like, the capital is safe. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you're in a struggle and somebody just gives you money, you're going to be like, oh, yes. And then you're going to pay for it in 6 months. Like, there will be a consequence to that. So, like, if you apply with somebody who's like, well, we're not really big fans of default, like, you know what I mean? They have no problem being like, now's not the time.
And if someone wanted to get in touch with Uncapped, what's the easiest way?
So they can reach out to me directly. If you're on LinkedIn, reach out, DM me. I'm happy to help you. Or they can visit our website directly. They don't have to come to me. But I would love it if all those attributions went to AMZ Optimized for having us on here. So reach out to me, and I'm happy to give you a link that attaches itself to AMZ Optimized so that we can make sure that you are taken care of as well, because anybody who refers business my way is always rewarded.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Stephanie, I'm really happy you came on. Thank you for these nuggets of gold and sharing your insights and your experience and your history.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, everybody, thank you for watching, whether you're on live or watching the reruns or shorts or anything. So catch you on the next one. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.